Today, we're going to talk about someone so incredibly effective, so dangerous, that the entire Nazi war machine made it a personal mission to hunt her down. This is the unbelievable, true story of Virginia Hall, the American spy who became a ghost, a legend, and an absolute nightmare for the Third Reich.
Just listen to this. That is a direct quote from Klaus Barbie, the infamous Gestapo chief, the man they called the Butcher of Lyon. And get this, he wasn't talking about some enemy general or a high-ranking politician. He was talking about one woman. He was obsessed with her.
So that's the big question, right? Who was this woman? Who was Virginia Hall? And how in the world did she become one of the most wanted people in all of occupied Europe? Well, her story is just one of sheer guts, brilliant intelligence, and unbelievable resilience. To really get a grip on her impact, you have to start with what her enemies thought of her. Because they didn't just know she existed. Oh no, they were absolutely terrified of her. The Germans had a few names for her. Sometimes she was Artemis, like the Greek goddess of the hunt. To others on the street, she was simply known as the Limping Lady. But whatever they called her face was on their wanted posters. She was a top priority for the entire Gestapo network. But what's so wild about this story is that this legendary spy almost never happened. Her entire career was basically born from a really painful rejection, one that would have stopped most of us cold. So let's back up a little.
Okay, so Virginia was born in Baltimore. She was sharp, ambitious, and spoke several languages fluently. She lands a solid job as a clerk with the U.S. State Department, but her real dream was to be a diplomat. And then bam, in 1933, a hunting accident. Her left leg had to be amputated below the knee. 4 years later, the State Department officially tells her, sorry, you can't be a diplomat. And it wasn't because she wasn't qualified, it was because of some old, obscure rule against hiring people with disabilities. Now, instead of letting that make her bitter, she dealt with it with this kind of amazing, defiant sense of humor. She actually named her wooden prosthesis. She called him Cuthbert. And Cuthbert would become her, let's say, unlikely and often very troublesome companion on some of the most dangerous missions of the war. And this, right here, this just perfectly captures the staggering irony of her entire story. On one hand, you have the US government saying she's unfit for a desk job. And then, just 5 years later, you have the Nazi Gestapo calling her the most dangerous of all Allied spies. The contrast is just incredible. So, rejected by her own country, Virginia found another way to fight. When the war started, she joined this brand new super-secret British outfit called the Special Operations Executive, the SOE. And they didn't hesitate. They sent her straight into France. She lands in Lyon, posing as a newspaper reporter, and almost overnight, she becomes the nerve center for the entire resistance in that area. I mean, she wasn't just a spy, she was a master organizer. She built a massive network from the ground up, funding resistance cells, arranging weapon drops, setting up safe houses, smuggling downed Allied pilots out of the country. She was doing it all. And her work really peaked with one of the most daring operations of the entire war, the Mozac prison break. She planned the whole thing from the outside. You've got tools being smuggled in sardine cans, a prisoner forging a key, a whole network of safe houses and getaway cars ready and waiting, all of it coordinated by her. And in the end, 12 captured Allied agents literally just walked right out the front door. It was a huge win for the SOE and a massive blow to the Germans' reputation. But of course, all this success put a giant target on her back. When the Nazis took over all of France in late 1942, the Gestapo swarmed Lyon looking for her. The only way out was over the mountains. So with Cuthbert, she made an absolutely grueling 2-day trek through the snow over a 7,500-foot mountain pass in the Pyrenees to escape into Spain. And this escape leads to a pretty famous and kind of grimly funny story. Before she left, she radioed London and said she hoped Cuthbert, her leg, wouldn't give her too much trouble. Her handlers in London, having no idea Cuthbert was her prosthesis, just coldly radioed back, "If Cuthbert troublesome, eliminate him." It just perfectly captures the kind of isolation she was dealing with. But Virginia Hall was not done, not even close. The British felt it was too risky for her to go back. She was too well known. But America's new spy agency, the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, well, they desperately needed someone with her skills. So they decided to send her back in.
So the OSS hooked her up with a brand new identity, Marcel Montagna. Here's her forged ID card. She was going back behind enemy lines, but this time she was working for the Americans. And to make sure no one recognized her, her disguise was, well, it was a complete transformation. She became an elderly peasant woman. We're talking gray hair, her teeth filed down, and she even adopted this slow, shuffling walk to hide her very distinctive limp. She was a ghost. This time around, her mission was totally different. She was sent to central France, and her job now was to train and arm the local resistance fighters, the Maquis they were called, to wage a full-on guerrilla war against the Germans to support the upcoming D-Day invasion. And was she good at it? Oh yeah. By the time the Allies were pushing through France, Virginia Hall was commanding 3 battalions. That's about 1,500 fighters, who were blowing up bridges, derailing trains, and ambushing German troops. She was a battlefield commander. So after the war, you'd expect a hero's welcome, right? Parades, public ceremonies, the whole shebang. But for Virginia Hall, that was the absolute last thing on earth she wanted. Here she is getting the Distinguished Service Cross from the head of the OSS himself, General William Donovan. This is America's second highest military award for valor. And get this, she was the only civilian woman to receive it in all of World War II. Let that sink in for a second. But here's the kicker. When President Truman wanted to give her the medal in a big public ceremony at the White House, she said no, flat out refused. And her reason? She told them she was, quote, still operational and most anxious to get busy. She was a spy, and spies stay in the shadows. Tragically, the very same institutional walls she hit before the war came right back up again. When she joined the newly formed CIA, she was overlooked, again, because she was a woman with a disability. Despite her legendary status as a field agent, they stuck her behind a desk. A secret internal CIA report even later admitted that her incredible talents were never properly utilized. And she took her stories with her. She never wrote a book. She never gave a single interview. She hardly ever talked about what she did during the war, even with her own family. It was only after she passed away in 1982 that her full story really started to come out. Which leaves us with this one last fascinating question. For a woman who was once the most wanted Allied spy in France, maybe her greatest act of defiance was her last one, choosing complete anonymity over fame. What makes a hero like that choose to be forgotten?